welcome to the Kenney Show. This is the place where we take a no bullshit look at life's little lessons. Here, together, we find the spiritual glory in even the most wicked hard story. This is a journey from fear back to love and how we can find our greatest strength and happiness in some of the most unlikely places. I believe that if you're willing to change your mind, you can totally change your life. So, are you ready to rewrite your story and choose to live free? Let's do this. Hey, you guys, and welcome to the Kenney Show. I'm a little punchy right now, you guys, because I'm up in my hot office and I just made, oh my God, I just did like 7 videos for my membership, The Nest. And so I'm a little extra punchy being on the mic right now. But look, I'm wicked excited about what we're going to talk about today. And it's extra fun because I get to sound like when I talk about it, like maybe I'm being a little fresh, which always cracks me up. So I'll tell you what I'm talking about. So today, episode 68, we're going to call this sucker, How Old Are You? Okay. How old are you? Now, some people might think that I'm talking about like chronologically your age, right? Like sometimes there's these scientific little quizzes you could take where you answer all the questions and they might say, well, biologically, your age is this, but based on what you said, this is your real age. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how you're showing up, how you are reacting and responding to the things in your life. We're going to dive in. So how old are you anyway? So how many times in your life? Now, maybe this wasn't a term that your people used, right? But there have been times in my life when I have either like said something or done something, an adult at the time looked at me and was like, how fucking old are you anyways, right? Like act your age. That's what they're saying to you, like act your age, right? And sometimes that can feel a little like mean, like when they're saying this thing, but here's the thing that I love to do. I love to flip the script. I love to play with words and find new meanings and find new ways into thinking about how can I dive more deeply into the question. Like really, what's the heartbeat around that question? And I can't for the life of me remember who I was first having this conversation with. So if you hear the sound of my voice and you remember that it was you, send up a flare and let me know. But here's the thing. Okay. There are times in our life, and if you haven't already listened to the episode called like buttons and button pushes, I think that's what it's called, buttons and button pushes. Go back and check that sucker out because that's kind of like the heartbeat. It's like an umbilical cord episode, like attached to it, because inevitably in life, as long as you are human, I always say this. So when I just created like my membership, right, The Nest, and people are like, hey, why are you doing that? One of the things that I say is because this being human is an ongoing problem. It's not like all of a sudden it all works out like perfectly. I do think that we can attitudinally, you guys, how do I say that word? You can adjust your attitude, but I want to say it attitudinally. Somebody help me. Somebody send KK a little audio of how to say that word correctly. So we can definitely adapt ourselves, right? Oh my God, to handling things a little bit better. Like I say somewhere, even on my website, that like something about happily ever after. And I have heard people say that happily ever after doesn't actually exist. And I push back against that a little bit. It doesn't mean that you're never going to have tough times and that you're never going to be sad and you're never going to grieve. And this being human sometimes is going to fucking like getting punched in the face, right? It's going to like take you out and knock you out. I'm not saying that. Happily ever after to me doesn't mean that you just walk around like, you know, like a weird blissful, like nothing bothers you. That's not what I'm saying. I think that we can have the experience of being here and continue to remember who we really are and to whom we really belong, and that we can navigate even difficult things with gratitude. We can navigate even difficult things with some semblance of joy, even when we don't like or understand what's going on. but I digress. Let me go back to, how old are you? So this is a really powerful question, and let me explain why. So back to the button pushing. Inevitably, at some point as you move through the world, when you have any kind of unhealed trauma, and I just think as a country, as a whole country right now, there is a lot of unhealed trauma. And this is why all this stuff is coming up. And is it horrifying? Is it uncomfortable? Is it scary? Is it dark? Is it is it all those things? Yes, we are basically dealing with the karma of a nation. But all this stuff from our past, all the ugly shit that people didn't want to think about or look at or admit or deal with, it's all coming up for healing. That to me is the good news. As much as there's a lot of darkness, I believe that love always wins. I believe that the light will always win. I believe the divine always wins. And Gandhi used to say that too. Gandhi used to say something like, it might appear for a while. It might appear for a while that the murderers and the bad stuff is winning. But he believes that like love always wins. And I think it's very powerful. I believe that too. But here's my point. Inevitably in our lives, things are going to come up. And if we have unhealed wounds, if we have unhealed trauma, like we collectively do, right? All a nation is a collective of individuals, right? So what's going on in the world is basically also asking us to take a good look at ourselves and say, so like, where within your mind do you hold any amount of violence, any amount of thinking of otherness, any amount of racism, any amount of prejudice, any amount of unseen bias or privilege that you're not, and it's everybody. Like, we all have our stuff. We are all collectively being asked to look at things, but the way that you change the collective is the individuals show up with a willingness to take a fucking good look at themselves and say, what is my role here? Can I eradicate all violence, all judgment, and as long as we're alive, it's almost nearly impossible. And I always say, unless you are Jesus Christ himself, unless you are the enlightened Buddha, unless you are Mother Mary or one of the saints, as long as we are human with an ego thought system, we are going to be bumping up against our blocks and barriers and bullshit that we create, that we get in the way, that we build against our own awareness, as A Course in Miracles says, to love's presence. Okay. How do we know that we have some issues? Because your buttons will get pushed and you will feel triggered and you will feel fill in the blank, whatever it is, guilty, shameful, attacked, moving through the world like you've got to prove something, you've got to defend something, you've got to make your point, you got to be right. Like, you know that you are not okay. When you feel your internal and external, I hope our external dukes at our age, right, are not coming up anymore. I hope we're not resorting to violence, although I understand why violence happens. Like, trust me, I get it. I'm not a fan of it, but I understand it. But let me talk about this. So this question, how old are you? Here's a very powerful practice, because I want to keep this short. Whenever you find yourself triggered, whenever you find yourself, I talk about like spiritual maturity sometimes as being able, no matter what's happening in life, being able to have a creative response, to be able to respond creatively rather than to have a conditioned reaction, to react from your past, to react from fear, right? Can we move from conditioned reactions of fear and instead respond with creative responses that are coming from love? Oftentimes, as A Course in Miracles says, the ego speaks first. And I would say, and is always wrong. So the ego speaks first, and it usually has a bad attitude. It's got something to say. It wants to be right. It wants to attack, defend, judge, approve. When you feel that rising up in you, when you feel yourself having an emotional reaction, and I've heard people say it before, and in fact, somebody in the nest just said, I'm not going to reveal like who it was or what it was about, but there was this question that came up when they recognized that they were reacting very strongly to something in their own words. I'm finding myself reacting really strong to this. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, how old am I right now? Like, whatever. And I was like, that's the question. And I use this in my one-to-one mentoring too, with my spiritual mentoring clients. When you feel that angst, that anxiety, that, desire to be like, I don't fit in, I'm not worthy, any bullshit thing that is not love, you ask yourself this question: how old am I right now? How old am I right now? And what I mean by that is not obviously your biological age, but there might be times in my life when I'm doing something, or I'm in a relationship with somebody, or I'm having a conversation, or I read something, or I see something on social media, and it's like, whoop, and I have this feeling. And it is definitely not a loving feeling. It might be a judgment. It might be an attack thought. It might be like, fuck you, like something, right? And I recognize, oh my God, I've taken a detour into fear. I have left my right mind. I'm now trained enough. I am now trained enough. I'm not saying I'm perfect, because trust me, I am not. But I am trained enough now. I have done enough mind training over the years, right? Yoga, A Course in Miracles, passage meditation, pranayama, breath work. I know how to pause. I know how to pause now. So when I find that coming up, I ask myself, how old are you right now? Because 51 pushing 52-year-old KK does not react from that place of like, right? Like a little kid having a tizzy, like a little kid having a tantrum, like a little kid spinning out of control, right? So I ask myself, how old are you right now? Because it is usually a younger version of me, some really young version of me often, or teenage version, or inner 20s, or whatever, who didn't have enough tools yet, that is having the hissy fit, that is saying like, this isn't okay, and you can't do, like, whatever the trigger is. When that rises up, you ask yourself, how old are you right now? Because some part of you that is still in its trauma, and it can be so deeply subconscious, you guys, we don't even know. Like I am telling you, even after all these years of doing this work and being a spiritual mentor, being a spiritual teacher, all that stuff, like things will arise up and I'm like, wow, either this again, thought we dealt with this, or I didn't even know this was here. I didn't even know that I still felt that way. I didn't even know, not even still felt that way. I didn't even know that I felt that way. Right. And that's one of the powerful things about writing and journaling is you write to understand the things that you don't even know that you think and believe. Right. It can be a very powerful practice. But when you get triggered, when your button gets pushed, before you do something you're going to regret, before you say something or hit send or send a response, like some sort of crazy reaction, you stop and you say, how old are you right now? Because it is coming up for healing. It is coming up for your attention. It is coming up for your love. And there will be times when things come up that you cannot handle on your own. And that's when it's very helpful to have a therapist, or to have a mentor, or to have a coach, or to have a really good safe place friend, to have a place like the Nest, a spiritual fellowship, a spiritual community where you can kind of go in and be like, whoa, this is coming up, right? And like, what's this about? And how old am I right now? And I guarantee you, I shouldn't say guarantee, but I kind of feel like I could say that. If you are willing to take a fearless moral inventory, if you are willing to really just stand in your discomfort, to stand in your place where you want to react and you want to cry and you want to yell, you want to have your tantrum like a little kid, like think about a little kid like having a hissy fit on the floor, right? Before you go there, but know that this emotion is coming up not because you're bad, because it is some old or wounded or traumatized part of yourself where you probably had to suck it up and stuff it down. Whether that's because you had to, because of the environment you were in, because you didn't know that there was another way to do it. It's just what you've always done or whatever. But when we feel that stuff coming up for healing, please, 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 I implore you, do not suck it up and stuff it back down. Stand with it. Ask the younger version of you. And the younger version of you could be like a week ago or 2 years ago or 25 or 40 or whatever it is, and say, what do you need from me right now? And sometimes that old part of you just needs somebody to give a shit, needs somebody to listen, to bear witness, to hear them out. And then you can reassure that part of you, hey, I've got you now. I know what to do, right? Like you're in good hands. And if you don't know the answer, that's when you call upon your inner teacher. That's when you call upon Holy Spirit or your spiritual team or the divine, or you ask God to carry or to take, right? Whatever it is, the God of your own understanding, whatever it is that you might pray to. Can you please help me to carry this burden? Can you please help me to see myself, this other person or situation differently? right? I could choose peace instead of this. How do I do that? Well, you certainly don't do it by cramming the damn wound, right? Like you don't just like pretend like there's not a wound. You don't put a Band-Aid on a big gaping wound. You don't take out the duct tape and say, I can fix this, right? We'll just do what we always do. We'll just shove it in the corner, pretend like it's not happening, like it's not broken, right? No. So when you feel the compulsion, the fire, the instigation, whatever it is, and something comes up, before you move into a conditioned reaction from your past and your history that you're going to regret, if you can pause, or as soon as you can recognize, I've taken a detour into fear and we're back, sit your ass down and ask yourself, how old are you right now? And you don't ask it in a condemning way or in a judgmental way. You meet yourself on the field of curiosity and you bring no weapons. You come open-minded, open-eared, open-hearted, and open-handed. And you surrender all thoughts of what you think you are and who you are. You surrender all thoughts of what you think the answer is. You surrender all thoughts of what and who you think God is. And you just say, please help me. Please help me to have clarity here. Please help me to be able to listen to and meet myself with compassion, meet myself with kindness, meet myself with grace and mercy, because it is coming up for your healing and your attention. It is not coming up for your condemnation. Nobody needs your condemnation. I don't see any amount of healing that happens when there's attack and blame and shame and guilt. The way of healing is the way of love. So we don't make ourselves guilty, bad, wrong, and shameful when we didn't know better. Right? So now when this thing comes up, whatever it is, it could be in a relationship with your partner, your sweetie, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, whatever you want to call it. It could be with a relationship at work. It could be somebody cut you off in traffic and you are having a very overreactive response. Like you're just like, where is this even coming from? Why am I so upset by this? That's a really great question to go along with. How old am I right now? How old are you? And just like I said, you wouldn't scream at a 4-year-old for not knowing how to tie their shoes. I mean, you might, but you're kind of a dick if you do, right? No, that kid's not going to be excited and enthusiastic about learning from you ever again or listening, because they're going to be terrified, right? So we want to create a safe space for our own healing. Ask yourself that very powerful question. How old are you? And I know I've asked myself that question when there have been times when I have found myself feeling of a very particular way. And I was surprised. I was surprised by the depth of my, like it feels like this fire is just like, I'm like, whoa, what is that about? KK, how old are you right now? And then I sit down and I consciously choose to show up and not abandon those old parts of myself. Not to say you are not welcome here. All parts of me are now welcome here. I don't abandon myself for anybody anymore. I don't murder off little parts of myself for anybody anymore. I say, you're welcome here. What are you trying to tell me? What do I need to know? How old am I right now? And then I get down to the business of listening and being kind, so that the healing can happen, so that I can show up more whole and holy, more full and complete and healed, right? Where the wounds are now moving towards the wisdom, the pain to the peace, from fear to love. That's what's required here. And this is also the work that we do in the nest. So let me just say this. If you missed being a part of the founding members opportunity, if you passed on that invitation, and I'm not saying anybody's actually having any regrets about that, but you might be, just know I'm going to open that sucker up in a few months. I'll be inviting some people back in. I will be opening up the love doors to the nest again later in the year. But if you're interested in getting into that, being a part of the spiritual fellowship where we do this kind of work and we talk about these kinds of things, send me a private message or DM, or what all the cool kids call it, right? Send me an email. Karen at Kenney, KENNEY.com. And remember, use this tool. This is a very powerful question. How old are you? And then meet yourself with curiosity instead of judgment, so that you can actually start to see what has come out of the darkness into the light for love and for healing. Speaking of love, I love you guys. So one of the things I'm trying to get better at, you guys, is to ask for your support and help in helping this show to grow, helping this show to kind of spread its peacock wings and to spread some love. So one of my friends who was very smart, he said, at the end of your shows, you should always be asking people that if they enjoy the show, like if they genuinely dig the show and listen and they haven't left a review yet, or they haven't left a rating on Apple Tunes or Apple Podcasts or whatever it is, you guys, that's one of the ways that we get to help the show be known and to grow, so that these kinds of little love letters and little love notes that I love to send get out into the ears of other people. So you can also just like share it with somebody. If you know there's somebody who could use this episode, man, share that sucker, like let them know. And if you feel willing and able to be helpful and to do a rating or review, I would friggin' love that. You guys, also, if you want to get on my email list or my newsletter list, oh my God, my nose is so itchy. Just go to my website, KarenKenney.com/freebie. Get on that sucker so you'll know what's happening. Like 2020 has been a little weird with events and stuff like that. I've had to cancel things and move things around. But if you want to know about Fearless Flow retreats, if you want to know about yoga and writing workshops, if you want to know when the doors to the nest open up again, if you want to find out how to work with me one-to-one or to, do one of my courses or whatever the thing is, that's how you find out. Join the family, get on the list. I would love to have you. So just thank you so much for your time tonight. I tried to keep this one short. I really do appreciate you. And my brothers and sisters, I am listening. I am listening and I am learning, and I am keeping my eyes, my ears, my heart, and my hands open. I just ask every single day. I ask every single day to be used, right? Please use me. Please use me. Please use me. Have me go where you would have me go. Have me do what you would have me do. Have me say what you would have me say, and to whom. And I also ask, like, please let me to hear what I need to hear. Right? Keep my ears open, keep my mouth shut. Good luck with that, right? But keep my mouth shut, but keep my ears, my heart, and my mind, my hands wide open. All right, you guys, I love you so much. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being a part of my Fearless Flow family. And as I always say, wherever you go, leave the people, the animals, the place, the environment better than how you found it. Wherever you go, may you be a blessing. Bye. Hey, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Karen Kenney Show. I super duper appreciate your time, friendship, and support. And look, if something that I shared from my heart today somehow landed in yours, I'd love to hear about it. So please tag me on Facebook or Instagram or IG stories or wherever the cool kids are hanging out these days, and let me know what your favorite part was or what you found most helpful. You can find me over at Karen Kenney Live. That's Karen, KenneYlive. And if you're digging what I'm saying and you want to hear more, I'd be wicked grateful if you could go to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, because you guys, that's how you'll help me to keep spreading the love. And if you can think of someone that could benefit from hearing this episode, please share it with them. I'd also love to stay connected with you. So if the feeling is mutual, please go to KarenKenney.com/freebie. and download my free guide to building your spiritual team. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, keep living in the fearless flow. Know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I love you. And wherever you go, may you be a blessing.